After completing my 10th class exams in 1979, my father suggested that I go and help my father's uncle and learn astrology. Mathematics being my favorite subject, I learned the calculations. My grandfather taught me how to calculate the inclinations of each planet and how to calculate the lagna and the meridian center MC, and he gave me some birth charts to draw. Thus, I learned how to draw the birth charts first and showed interest in predictions. So, my grandfather told me some predictions, some of the tips that he usually uses for predictions. And after learning those tips, I documented some of them. I verified with my father. While my father and my grandfather have laid the foundation for me to get interested in astrology, for almost a decade or 2 decades, I didn't show any interest. Let me explain what is the definition of Graha Mallika. Graha in Sanskrit means planets, Mallika means garland. So if one planet in only one planet in one Rashi or one house is there, and consequently all the planets one after the other in every Rashi there is a planet, then it is called a Graha Mallika. As I said here, it is formed when planets are placed continuously in at least 5 consecutive signs. Some people consider Rahu and Ketu also as a planet, but it's up to the people who wants to do that. So if there are 5 consecutive signs, planets in 5 consecutive signs, at least one planet, then it is called Panchagraha Mallika. Pancha means 5. If there are 6, then Shad Graha Mallika. If there are 7, it is Sapta Graha Mallika. If there are 8, it's Ashtagraha Mallika. If there are 9, Navagraha Mallika. So of all these, the most toughest thing, the rare possibility is the Ashtagraha Mallika and Navagraha Mallika, because it is very difficult to have 8 planets in 8 houses continuously, and then comes the 9 planets in 9 houses continuously. Rarely, it's not at all possible. Very rarely it happens. So this is the definition of Graha Mallika. As I said earlier, the GrahaMallika definition, it is rare possibility to have 8 planets, Ashtagraha or Navagraha, but in 2018, between August 18th and August 20th, there is a possibility to have a Saptagraha. That means during this period, 7 planets are in each Rashi consecutively. That means if you look at the chart on 18th August, Mercury is in Cancer, Sun is in Leo, Venus is in Virgo, Moon and Jupiter, see, they are both are in Libra, and Scorpio is the only that is empty, and Saturn is in Sagittarius, and Mars is in Capricorn. So on 18th, at that what are the time that I took it, the Saptagraha Mallika did not exist. So by the time I took it on 20th August, you can see that starting from Cancer all the way till Capricorn, all the houses, there is at least one planet in every house. There is no empty house between Cancer and Capricorn. So between 18th August and 20th August, this Saptagraha Mallika is going to be existed. So what exactly is going to happen to this period between 18th August and 20th August is what is my interest here, and this presentation is exclusively about this Saptagraha Mallika and how can it impact an individual. I will be analyzing one particular chart, one or two charts, and show you how and predict what could happen during that period. Before you go and try to analyze any chart during this Saptagraha Mallika period, the first and the foremost you have to see is where is that planet residing, in who is the house lord for that Rashi, and what is the relationship between the planet and the house lord. If the house lord and the planet have a friendly relationship, then the chances whatever that house, whatever the planet is, and when it is in that particular house lord, depending upon the individual's chart, that particular house will get activated by that particular planet. I will explain you more in detail later when I take one or two examples. Here during this Saptagraha Mallika, let's start with Mercury. Mercury is residing in the house owned by Moon. Mercury is in Cancer, so it's owned by Moon. So the relationship between Mercury and Moon is neutral. Sun is residing in its own house. This is very important point here to notice, because Sun is the, for most of the time, Sun has the leadership skills and something, because Sun is residing in its own house during that period. Those, for all those natives who has Sun as Lagna, Sun as the 10th house will, or Sun has 9th house or 7th house. So these are the natives with all these will have something unique happening during that period between 18th and 20th of August. Mercury is residing in the house owned, sorry, Venus is residing in the house owned by Mercury. Venus and Mercury are friends, so Venus is in a good position. Jupiter is residing in the house owned by Venus, and the relationship between Jupiter and Venus is neutral, so that's no problem. Moon is residing in the house owned by Mars. The relationship between Moon and Mars are friends, so no problem. Sun is residing in the house owned by Jupiter. Jupiter and Sun are two bitter enemies. Saturn is residing in the house owned by Jupiter. Saturn is a bitter enemy to Sun, and Saturn is also a bitter enemy to Jupiter. Remember, there was an old classical saying that whenever there is any sort of a relationship between Jupiter and Saturn, disappointments and hurdles are assured. So now here Saturn is in Sagittarius for the last 1.5 years, and that means Saturn is residing in the house owned by its enemy. So for sure Saturn is going to do something bad. So when it comes to what exactly is the bad and what is the intensity, that depends on the native's birth chart. The last one is Mars. Mars is residing in the house owned by Saturn. Saturn is neutral to Mars. So fortunately, during this Saptagraha Mallika, the only negative impact that you can see from the planets is basically from the natural malefic Saturn. Let's now start looking at the individual transit planets' inclinations, just to see where they are and how they are. If you look at it here, Sun is in 1 degree Leo. That means Sun is the only planet to the extent possible that has in Rashi Sandhi. So when transit Sun is in Rashi Sandhi, you got to say that okay, if it is not in Leo, the previous one is Cancer. So if it is not Leo, what will should we consider Sun being in Cancer and then look at the transit analysis, or sometimes you have to consider in both Sun being in Cancer and Leo, and look at the transit analysis. Apart from that, here I don't see any other major issue with any of these planets. So all the planets were above the so called Rashi Sandhi. So at the most you can see some sort of a issue or some sort is with Saturn, because it's in retrograde and it is very close to 8 degrees. That means after from 8 it goes all the way down to 0 and will be stationary. So that means Saturn is losing its speed, because from retrograde to the forward motion, to move it, it has to come to the stationary state. So Saturn is now slowly reducing its rotational speed, indicating that it is more it's more closer to the stationary Saturn, indicating that Saturn will be a bit more stronger than the normal way it usually be. Like if Saturn is 8 degrees in forward motion, then it wouldn't be that, the impact wouldn't be much. But when Saturn is in retrograde in 8 degrees, that means it's going to the 0 degree very soon. So it's losing its speed, it's trying to become stable and 0 degrees for some time. So that's when it becomes very strong. And so here those who have one way or the other have some sort of a impact by transit Saturn, those are the people or the countries that will see the highly visibility of that impact during these 3 days. Okay, now that we talked about the Graha Mallika, let's start taking an example and explain. This is the birth chart of the United States of America, and if you look at it on your right hand side, what you see is the D1 chart. And we all know that the Graha Mallika is starts in Cancer and it goes all the way till Capricorn, and that means it's a Saptagraha Mallika. All the 7 houses starting from Cancer till Capricorn are all occupied by at least one planet. That means no house is empty between Cancer and Capricorn. So before starting to analyze the Graha Mallika impact, let's go and see the Vimsottari Dasa on that particular day. Here the date is somewhere after August, from 18th August, 19th and 20th. These are the 3 days where the chances of Graha Mallika is possible. So I'm taking August 19th as a 100% guaranteed Graha Mallika. So let's go and see on 19th August, according to Vimsottari Dasa, what is the planetary Dasa system going on. First of all, the Mahadasa is Rahu. Rahu is in 9th house for the country. 9th house is Dharmasthanamu, number 1 in general. And when you look, if the chart is of a country, then it is considered, 9th house is considered as law and order and courts. Courts is a place where that decide the dharma of, so that's the being the Dharmasthanamu, and this being a country, it's the courts and the law. Those two are directly related to Dharmasthanamu. So 9th house deals with courts and law for this particular country, where you have Rahu. And when you see Rahu in the 9th house, remember I explained earlier that wherever you see Rahu, that particular house becomes dynamic. So there will be a lot of ups and downs in that particular house, and a lot of surprises are sure to happen because of Rahu's presence. Now, along with natal Rahu in the same 9th house, currently transit Rahu is also residing. So on this Graha Mallika day, transit Rahu is co-joining with natal Rahu in the 9th house. That's very important, and Rahu Mahadasa is running. So a lot of things that people don't expect to happen with respect to law and order and courts is sure to happen during this Rahu Mahadasa. And if you see it, the Rahu Antardasa is till 2019 April. So that means the law and order and the courts, whatever the impact that Rahu is going to show, will be on only these two all the way until April 2019, and it will be very highly visible. Then comes the Pratyantara Dasa is Venus. Venus is the 7th house lord and the 12th house lord. 12th house is Moksha Sthanamu, and sometimes 12th and 7th house, because this is a country, you cannot say it as a collector Sthanam, you can just say it as friendly relationships with other countries. Then comes the Jupiter. Jupiter is Venus and Jupiter, they both are in the 8th house. Gosh. And then the Venus Pratyantara Dasa. Up to that point, that's fine. When you go to the Dehantara Dasa on 19th of August, the Dehantara Dasa from morning around 8 o'clock in the morning all the way till midnight, close to 22 hours or 23 hours is close to midnight. That means you can say that on that particular day, the whole day, it's the Saturn's Dehantara Dasa running for this particular country. It's Rahu Mahadasa, Rahu Antaradasa, and Saturn's Dehantara Dasa. Gosh. And if you look at it, the transit Saturn is in the 2nd house, and from 2nd house it's directly looking at the 8th house, where you have the 2nd house lord Jupiter residing, and whenever Jupiter and Saturn have any sort of a relationship, disappointments and hurdles is sure to happen. And for that to add furthermore, you have the Venus, the 7th and 12th house lord Venus residing there, and the violent planet Mars, the Lagnadipati Mars, is residing in the 8th house, and Sun, the leader for the country, is residing also in the 8th house. So overall, just by looking at this Vimsottari Dasa, it's very, very difficult to tell that something good is sure to happen. No, it's not at all possible. So whatever happens will be something that surprises the whole nation or even the whole world for this particular day. Having said that, analyzing the Vimsottari Dasa on that particular day, 19th August, what might happen, let's go and now look at the Graha Mallika, the Saptagraha Mallika planets, the transit planets, and see which transit planet is co-joining with the natal planets in the chart, and what could be the impact individually, what that transit planet can do. First of all, we'll start, the Graha Mallika starts with Cancer. So Mercury will be in Cancer on that day. Mercury is the lord of the 8th house, you can see it over there, and that means the 8th house deals with state treasury, deaths and large scale losses, first of all. So something that's pertaining to state treasury, deaths in the country, or some large scale losses is what can happen during that period. And natal Mercury and transit Mercury are co-joining in the 9th house. Remember, I told you 9th house deals with law and courts, and transit Rahu and natal Rahu are also co-joining in the 9th house. So here what you see is that the natal planets are co-joining with the transit planets, indicating that the natal planets became much stronger and the impact will be highly visible. As I said earlier, something pertaining to law and courts, state treasury, debts and large scale losses is what Mercury and Rahu together is going to do or initiate on that day. The next comes is Sun. Sun is in 8th house, and you know Sun sometimes is treated as the leader of the country when you are looking at the country's chart. So, and the sun is in the 8th house, and you can see their sun is co-joined with Venus, Jupiter and Mars. So transit sun is just is now in its own house, which is the 10th house. And then comes Venus. Venus is the 7th and 8th or 12th house lord. Venus, he will be in the 11th house co-joined with natal Saturn. The relationship between Venus and Saturn is very good, so we don't need to worry about it. That is the 11th house. The 12th house, Jupiter is residing there. Jupiter is the 2nd house lord and residing in the 12th house, transit Jupiter, and having a direct look on the 6th house. 6th house deals with the diseases, public health issues with the public health or something like that. So Jupiter being the 2nd house lord, remember Jupiter is the 2nd house lord, that means Maraka Sthanadipati, and natal Jupiter residing in the 8th house. So this transit Jupiter, when it being in the 12th house already transit Jupiter is there in the 12th house for a long time. So we already are seeing some sort of issues pertaining to public health, and that would be amplified, or something new issue will be starting on that particular day, which is August 19th. Next comes Moon. Moon is the 9th house lord. Dharmasthanadipati is Moon, and now Moon is in the 1st house. So whatever Moon does, it is pertaining to the country. The Dharmasthanadipati is doing something to the country, and 9th house for the country deals with law and courts. So, and they all are looking directly at the 7th house. 7th house deals with foreign relationships, like I said earlier, relationship with other countries, sometimes crime against women and international disputes, and some people even consider it as a war. So now Moon, the 9th house lord, is directly looking at the 7th house. So something pertaining to the foreign relations, crime against women and international disputes is something is going to happen, and that might be through law or court's decisions. That something is going to happen when Moon is in there on 19th August. The next one is transit Saturn. Transit Saturn is in the 2nd house for a long time, and it is having a direct aspect on the 8th house, where its bitter enemy Sun is residing. The 8th and Venus, Jupiter and Mars are also residing there. Next comes natal Mars. Remember, Mars is the Lagnadipati, and transit Mars is now going to be in the 3rd house. In the 3rd house, that means it's going to have a direct aspect on the 9th house. In 9th house, we already have transit and natal Rahu, transit and natal Mercury. They are already there in the 9th house, and now transit Mars is looking at the 9th house. So whatever the changes that are expected or predicted to happen pertaining to the 9th house, which is law and courts, will be something that would be resulting through some sort of a violence, because Mars is related there. That means the violence can be just like arguments or physical or verbal violence. So this is exactly what I'm predicting for the country, United States, on exclusively between 18th and 20th of August due to Graha Mallika. Let me wait and see what exactly is going to happen on that day. Here is the second example, and the second example that I took is the Republic of India birth chart, which is on 15th August 1947 at 1 minute after midnight. And for India's birth chart, in Lagna you see natal Rahu there, Mars is in the 2nd house, Sun, Saturn, Mercury and Moon are in the 3rd house. That's something that I want to keep in mind, because that is the 3rd house is Cancer for India, and that's where the Graha Mallika starts on 18th, 19th and 20th of August. So the point where the Graha Mallika starts, at that point there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 planets, natal planets residing there. And after that, natal in the 8th house, natal Jupiter and transit Jupiter are co-joining, and in that's in the 6th house, and in the 7th house, transit moon is co-joining with Ketu. That means transit moon is having a direct aspect on Rahu in the 1st house for the country, and in 8th house you have transit Saturn residing, and above all in the 9th house we have transit Mars residing, and transit Mars is the lord of the 7th and the 12th houses for the country. So a lot can be anticipated or predicted. We don't know exactly what is going to happen, but let me try to predict as many as I can and wait for see how many of those were true. First of all, let's go and look at the Vimsottari Dasa. In the Vimsottari Dasa, if you look at it, the 3rd house lord Moon Mahadasa is running, and in the Moon Mahadasa, Moon is residing in its own house, and during this Moon Mahadasa, transit Rahu is co-joined with the Moon. So Moon being the mind or mother nature when it comes to the country, being transit Rahu being co-joined there, the mother nature would not be very helpful for the country. Then comes the Antardasa is Jupiter. Jupiter is in the 6th house, and transit and natal Jupiter, they both are residing in the 6th house. For the country, 6th house deals with the public health or diseases, and since mother nature is not cooperating for the country, that might result into some sort of issues pertaining to diseases or public health. And the Pratyantara Dasa is again Jupiter. The Sukshmantara Dasa is Mercury. Mercury is the 2nd house lord. 2nd house deals with the state treasury, that means the country's revenue. And now Mercury is in the 3rd house co-joined with which is now co-joining with transit Rahu. So the state, because of the mother nature not being supportive and issues in public health, the state treasury would be a little bit dynamic. I won't say more than that. And then the Pratyantara Dasa is Venus. Oh gosh, Venus is also in the 3rd house. And let's go to and see, it's a Venus Pratyantara Dasa starts at midnight on August 19th. So on the whole August 19th, it's a Venus Pratyantara Dasa that is running. So let's go and keep an eye on Venus. Natal Venus is the lord of the 1st and 6th house lords. 6th house deals with public health and diseases, and 1st house is self, and transit Rahu is already there in the 1st house. So something that cannot be predicted is sure to happen for the country. And 6th house being the public health and diseases, as I said earlier, something is going to happen, either some sort of a natural disaster or some sort of a disease outcomes or some sort of a major public health issue is all going to happen during these 3 days, 18th, 19th and 20th of August. When you look at it, Moon, whose Mahadasa is running, transit Moon will be in Scorpio, which is the 7th house, and 7th house deals with foreign relations and crime against women, so and international disputes. These are the 3 things I would say. So whatever the issues that they are going to have would be something that deals with, that has some sort of a foreign country relationship with other countries, that will have some sort of an impact with the relations on the other countries. And crime against women would be might be the primary reason for all that issues to happen on those 3 days, and above all some sort of an international disputes. So this is what, based on the Vimsottari Dasa and the impact of the Graha Mallika in general, this is what I can see for India. Now let's go and try to analyze individually the transit planets in the Graha Mallika during between its 18th and 20th August. The Graha Mallika starts in Cancer. Cancer is the third house. When you look at the country, the third house deals with transportation, automobiles, and railways. Railways also comes under transportation, so there is no specific part of railways. Automobiles, railways, and transportation, these are the three major things that the third house that denotes the third house, and that's where the Graha Mallika is starting. Transit Mercury is now co-joined with the natal Mercury on that during those 3 days. Mercury is the second house lord. Second house deals with state treasury. So as I said earlier, something that is pertaining to transportation and will have an impact on the state treasury or the vice versa. And remember, its transit Rahu is already here. So whatever is going to happen will be a big surprise and something that is not predictable because of Rahu's impact on that particular house. And not only that, it has a relationship with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 natal planets, of which Saturn, the 9th house lord Saturn, is there. 9th house deals with law and order and courts, dharmasthanamo. So something, I don't know. And then comes the second one is Sun. Sun is already in the third house. So third house means transportations, all those things. Sun indicates the leader. So it's the leader of the country who has to either be impacted or will initiate the impact. Either the leader gets impacted or the leader will start the impact. The next is Venus. Venus is in the 5th house, and Venus is the Lagnadipati for us, so for this country, for India. So, and I think Venus is the Pratyantara Dasha on August 19th whole day. So Venus residing in the 5th house on that whole day. And if you look at it, natal Saturn's third aspect is on transit Venus. Fortunately, the relationship between Saturn and Venus are friendly, so I wouldn't worry that much. That major impact to be worried from Venus. That's the biggest advantage for the country, is because Venus is the friend of Saturn, and transit Venus is not co-joining with any of the natal planets. Only natal Venus is co-joined with transit Mercury and transit Rahu. So whatever that impact happens should happen on the third house for the country. The third house deals with transportation. Okay, and then comes the 6th house. The 6th house lord is Jupiter. 6th house, you have transit and natal Jupiter. They both are residing in the 6th house. And if you look at it, Jupiter is the lord of the 8th house. Because of the reason that Jupiter is the lord of the 8th house, residing in the 6th house, and both transit and natal Jupiters are now co-joined. Actually, transit Jupiter is co-joining with natal Jupiter for the past almost 1 year, and the country is already seeing some sort of major issues pertaining to 8th house. Okay, the 8th house, a lot to say about with the 8th house, because 8th house deals with secret affairs and secret dealings, and the 6th house is the public health and diseases. Then comes the 7th house. As I said earlier, transit moon is in the 7th house, having a direct aspect on the 1st house where natal Rahu is residing, and natal moon is co-joined with transit Rahu in the 3rd house, and moon owns that house. And this is the currently moon Mahadasa is running to. So whatever happens for the 3rd house is something that is highly visible for the whole country. Then comes the Saturn. Saturn is already in the 8th house for a long period, and we are already noticing what is the impact of this Saturn on the country. The last one is Mars. Mars is in the 9th house, Dharmasthanamu, law, order and courts. So that means Mars is having a direct aspect on the 3rd house. Transit Mars is having a direct aspect on the 3rd house. Remember, I already mentioned that what are the major impacts that can be predicted pertaining to the 3rd house. Now Mars residing in the 9th house. 9th house means law and order and courts. From there, Mars is looking at the 3rd house. So something where the law or the courts will be involved, and the involvement would either create some sort of a disruption, possibly some sort of a violent disruptions, but pertaining to the 3rd house. Here our 3rd house is transportation, automobiles, railways and newspapers. So these 3 days is something that for India we have to keep an eye on, especially the 3rd house impacts, and that's the major ones. And the minor ones is the 6th house and the 2nd house, because any impact that happens on the 3rd house, which is transportation, will have a major ripple effect on the 2nd house, because 2nd house is your treasury and banking system and trading systems also. So all these things pertains to revenue, state revenue, country's revenue. So there will be some sort of a major impact on that particular side of the country too. The previous 2 examples that I had shown is about the countries. So this is the 3rd example I'm explaining. This is my own chart. So let's see how this Saptagraha Mallika will have an impact on humans. And first of all, in my chart, the Saptagraha Mallika will start in Cancer, which is the 11th house, and it goes all the way to the 5th house, which is Capricorn. So that's where the Saptagraha Mallika starts. And fortunately, if you look at my chart, all the transit planets, there aren't any natal planets that are co-joining with the transit planets during the Saptagraha Mallika period, 18th August through 20th August. Let's go and see the Vimsottari Dasa. Transit Saturn is already in the 4th house. That is the 4th house from Rashi Lagna and 8th house from Chandra Lagna. That means I am going through the Ashtama Shani period for almost 1.5 years, close to 1.5 years, 1 more year to go. So, and it is the Saturn Mahadasa, so the impact is highly visible. And it's the Rahu, during the Rahu Antaradasa, which started in 2016 June all the way till 2019 April. That impact, the Ashtama Shani impact, is now co-joined, gets amplified by Rahu, and Rahu is now in the natal Rahu being in the 10th house, and transit Saturn's direct aspect is on the natal Rahu. That Ashtama Shani impact is clearly visible. That's pertaining to 10th house, which is career. And then comes the Venus Pratyantra Dasa, Saturn Sukshmantra Dasa, and let's go and try to look at the Dehantar Dasa during those days. If you look at it from 19th, on August 19th, from 5 a.m. all the way till August 19th, okay, you can say midnight August 19th. If you look at it in Dehantar Dasa, Sun, Moon and Mars, these are the 3 major planets that are going to be impacted if you look at it on an hourly basis. The first impact will be from Sun, starting from 5 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. approximately. Sun is the 12th house lord and residing in the 9th house. And guess what? Transit Sun is now going to be in my 12th house, owned by Sun. And there the Dehantar Dasa is Sun. So Sun, because of the Sun residing in the 12th house, and transit Sun residing in the 12th house, and natal Sun is in the 9th house, something that's pertaining, that has a relationship with the Bhagyasthanamu. 9th house is Bhagyasthanamu and 12th house is unexpected expenditures. So there is some sort of a relationship between the Bhagyasthanamu and unexpected expenditures is what is something that might get initiated during that period. Then comes the moon. The moon is the 11th house lord, is financial gains or losses, and moon is again in the 9th house, so pertaining to financial gains and losses is. And look what, that's the time when transit Rahu and transit Mercury will be in the 11th house. That means during that time from 10:30 a.m. all the way till 10:30 to 19:57, that means 8 o'clock in the evening, that means during the whole day it's the moon. So whatever the sun has initiated, the unexpected expenditures pertaining to my Bhagyasthanamu, moon is going to amplify it from 10:30 a.m. till the end of the day, and that would be resulting into some sort of a financial losses or gains. Here I would say it as a loss because the natal Rahu is already getting impacted by transit Saturn, that is in the 10th house, which is my career, and transit Rahu is now in the 11th house, co-joined with the 10th house lord transit Mercury. So some sort of a financial loss pertaining to my career is something that gets initiated during those 3 days, that is 18th, 19th and 20th of August. Then comes Mars. Mars is the 3rd house lord and the 8th house lord, and if you look at it, the 3rd and 8th house lord Mars will be in the 5th house. Transit Mars will be in the 5th house, and the natal Mars is already in the 9th house, and whatever is going to happen will be something that's pertaining to the 5th house, which is children, will have some sort of an impact on children, 5th house being children and father and higher education too. So this is what I can say based upon my Vimsottari Dasa on this, during the Sapta Graha Mallika. Let me go and in detail, and just like I did it for the other 2 charts, let me see individually how these transit planets are going to have an impact on me during those 3 days. Let's start looking at the Saptagraha Mallika on this superimposing on my natal chart, D1 chart. Transit Mercury and transit Rahu, they both are going to be in the 11th house during those 3 days. Transit Mercury is direct aspect, of course transit Rahu is also. They both, for the both of the transit planets, the direct aspect will be on the 5th house where transit Mars is residing. Transit Mars means natal Mars is the lord of the 3rd and 8th houses. 3rd house is siblings, 8th house is secret affairs or something that's pertaining to secret stuff. So transit Mercury, transit Rahu is going to have some sort of an impact on my 11th house, which is the financial gains or losses, and Mars, the 8th house and the 3rd house plan lord, is having a direct aspect. So I got to see what exactly is going to happen on those 3 days that would result into some sort of a financial loss. The next comes is Sun. As I said earlier, transit Sun is going to be in its own house, which is the 12th house, unexpected expenditures or hospitalizations, and natal Sun is in the 9th house. So that means that either the unexpected expenditures or hospitalizations will result in some sort of a Bhagyasthanam, means result to some sort of a money related issues, and that might be the reason why I'll encounter some sort of a financial losses. And then comes the transited Venus is in the 1st house, the 9th house lord and the 2nd house lord is in the 1st house. Fortunately it's not having, no one is looking at it. Oh yeah, transit Saturn is looking at transit Venus, in that is my 1st house. So apart, no, 1 2 3, no, not, it's the 2nd house it is looking at it. So then comes to this transit Jupiter. For the past 1 year, transit Jupiter is already in my 2nd house and having a direct aspect on the 8th house where natal Jupiter is residing. So second house is Marakasthanamu, 8th house is Mrityusthanamu. Jupiter is the lord of the 7th house for me. So 7th house is again Marakasthanamu. So something that's pertaining to all this is was clearly visible and will be clearly visible because of my Ashtamashani period that is going on. The next comes the most important. The third house is Moon. Remember, Moon is the 11th house lord. It's now the transit Moon is residing in the third house and having a direct aspect on the 9th house where natal Moon is also residing. The financial losses, Labhasthanadipati Moon is going to be in both the transit Moon is looking at the natal Moon, so the Labhasthana will be the major impact for me, and because that is being overviewed by Mercury and Rahu during these 3 periods, it will be some sort of a financial losses. Something that deals with financial losses. And then comes that we know the transit Saturn is having a direct aspect on the 10th house. It's the Ashtamashani period that's going on, so there will be a lot of issues pertaining to my career, which I'm going through already for the past almost 8 months. A lot of issues pertaining to my career. Then the last one is transit Mars. As I said earlier, transit Mars 4th aspect is on the 8th house. That's not a good sign. And Mars is the 8th house lord. Transit Mars is looking at its own house, 8th house, where natal Jupiter is residing, and transit Jupiter is also looking at the 8th house. Let's wait and see what is going to happen at that part during those 3 periods. How transit Mars and transit Jupiter and natal Jupiter, what are these 3 going to do for me during those 3 days, because Jupiter is the lord of the 4th and 7th house. Transit Saturn is already residing in the 4th house. Okay, let's wait and see. Something major might happen that would result into some sort of a financial losses during those 3 periods for me exclusively, and the chances is more than 90% for that to happen is because I'm going through the Ashtamashani period, and it is the Saturn Mahadasa and Rahu Antaradasa. So let me go and see what exactly is going to happen during those 3 days.